there's only one way really to safely explain this. If you took shamanism and the well-being industry and they eloped, and the energetic baby that was produced as a result of that miraculous night, and then divided that energetic baby further into two energies of the masculine and feminine, there's a high chance that the resulting product would be Jonathan and Charlotte from the wellness theory. So just to give you some context, this is a conversation. I really hope you enjoy it, because the information and the wisdom and understanding and perspective that both these two lovely people bring to the world and the work they're doing is...
The one thing is the intentionality of consciousness.
Is it though? I don't know. But what I do know is that...
Now, keep in mind the term intentionality.
And the more we love ourselves, the more we reveal our true wealth.
Perception, knowledge, other states of consciousness.
And that's all Bare Intention intends to mention and share our ideas, experiences, and lessons.
It has to do with the conscious external reference
of health,
which the mind has in knowing something.
Through creativity.
Okay, cool. I'd love to kick it off just to know, are you guys side sleepers? Do you sleep on your sides or on your back?
Bit of both, really.
I sleep in every position you can imagine.
Really? God, it must be chaos in your bed. I sleep. I'm like, if I sleep flat out on my side. Like if I turn on my right side, I'm out cold.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just straight up. I'm a fetal position kind of guy.
I always wait. I start in the fetal position, then I wake up just like all over the place.
Really? It's so interesting, isn't it? Like I remember, so me and my brother, we grew up in the same bedroom together. Like we were for like what 18 years, maybe like 20 years. We were in the same bedroom together, and I would always roll away from him, so I'd be on my side, on my right side, because he would sleep. He'd stay up a little bit longer reading with the light on, and I'd be like, oh no, fuck that, I'm going to sleep. And so I'd roll over, and that's kind of like, that's my default. That's my default.
It's amazing what stays with you. Like 18 years of doing that, and that's it. It's just...
Tell me about it. Yeah, speaking of habits, I mean, do you guys find that you're a lot of, when you're working with clients or with yourself, that it's a matter of or being able to watch what habits popping up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think habits are essential in many ways, but I think a lot of people overthink habits as well. Like we're always watching for habits. We're looking for patterns really, rather than habits, when we work with clients and even within ourselves. Right? The more aware we are of our own patterns, we then can learn, okay, well, do they serve us or not? And then later, I think that when it comes to potentially something's not serving you, that's when the habits start to kind of creep in there. So you can start to almost engineer what it is you want.
Right on. Okay, cool. And when you guys coach, are you working together? Do you like?
Yeah. So we initially do the first couple of sessions with the client together, where we obviously get to know them a bit more and obviously goal set with them, and then depending on what they really need and kind of what direction they need to go in, then we branch off, and then some weeks I'll spend time with Charlotte on her own, some weeks I'll spend time with me, depending on what part of their wellness needs more focus, whether it's the mental emotional side or the kind of physical side. So the more, and obviously if they need more of a kind of a quick work on a certain area, if they've got a lot going on and they need that, then I'll spend a bit more time with one of us compared to the other initially. But over the period of the time they spend with us, they've always got constant communication and contact with us, regardless whether it's one of us on a call, both of us, or in between, because we're always there as a support mechanism every day.
Nice. That must be
the plan.
Sorry.
Go on. The plan is always that they're going to be working with both of us, and then we see how it unfolds based on what the person needs. But essentially, like the program itself is always both of us together, isn't it?
Is that intentional, or is it just the way you formulated, or is there a reason why the pair of you in that way?
A lot of it comes down to skill sets and passion as well, because like as much as we both are big advocates that everything works together when it comes to our well-being, right? It's that you can't just work on mental health and completely neglect your physical health. It just doesn't really work like that. Not to really get the results that we could be getting. But for me personally, I love leaning in and going deep on the mental and emotional well-being. And Jonathan loves big time going into the physical side of things. So I think we just really have learned to complement each other. And our clients, I think, really enjoy that as well, because they almost kind of get two people singing from the same hymn sheet, which also actually helps them to start to think about things differently, because we both coach in slightly different ways as well. And I think it just opens up a third mind that's not necessarily there to make things click into place.
Opening the third mind with wellness theory. Epic.
New tagline.
Cool. Epic. That sounds amazing. And I love that you've got that synergy of like mind, body kind of, and then emotional aspect to it as well. It's so important. And so Jonathan, you're specifically more working from like a personal training standpoint.
Well, yeah, so it's more the physical and the breathwork kind of standpoint that I'm passionate about. Like I spent, it's about just 20 years now in kind of health and fitness, health and wellness, and most of that initially was the physical side, was training and nutrition. And it took me a while to realize that the type of training and nutrition is not very effective for lasting change with the majority, with the average person. Right. It's too intense, too hardcore. There's too much restriction for it to become lasting change with most people. I like to just stick with it forever. And that kind of moved me into more mindful movement, is actually teaching people how to connect with their body more. So is having that connection where they understand what they're feeling, understand what sensations their body is presenting them and what it means, and then how to actually move mindfully and move more freely for them, because everyone can do the same movements, but not everyone's going to respond the same. And that's the difference, is getting people to understand that their body will respond differently to different things, different stimulus, in a positive or negative way. And it's getting people to understand that is to listen to what their body's telling them, to know what's right for them, and not just listening to what's out there on social media, or kind of the average personal trainer down the gym is thinking, oh, you've got to do squats, deadlifts, and box jumps if you want to lose weight and get fit, or you've got to avoid these foods if you want to lose weight, because all that stuff, none of that exists. And there's no such thing as the perfect movement, no such thing as a perfect food. It all comes down to the individual and what's perfect for them. And that's where it comes down to be more mindful about what you're putting into your body, but mindful about how you're moving your body. Because I ruined my body from top to toe, with years of intense weight training and HIIT training. I've damaged every joint in my body, chronic pain for 4 years. And I just thought that was part of training. That's what was meant to happen. You just kind of suck it up and get on with it. And it took me about 15 years of doing that to realize that, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And that's definitely not sustainable. It's not for the long term. And my goal is to be fitter and healthier, more mobile year on year. So when I'm 90, I want to be able to move better than when I was in my 20s. And that's my goal.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that's epic. Wow, it's cool. I love it. There's just like a massive well of passion there that's coming through. That's so cool. And you touched on something that's so important, is just that connecting with how we really feel. And it's funny that even though we can, as a collective, or the general industry itself is about, going to HIIT, go push it, just kind of like forget about how it feels. Don't just ignore it. Just ignore the pain. Like, let's go. Let's go. Like, David Goggins is one for that. It's like, let's push through the pain rather than, but it's through like ignorance
of it and like removing the acknowledgement of the discomfort. Whereas actually, if we can acknowledge the discomfort, we can still move through it, but in a way that we can actually integrate the discomfort, integrate why we're uncomfortable with it, integrate the presence that is required for that experience, and attain the goal that we want in the healthiest way possible, without it severing, without it making things worse. It can make things better if we're just, I really find that it's just a simple case of being present with our body during that process. And it's amazing that that isn't just what is on a, it's funny that, you know, we're talking about, like, if we go from like the mind aspect is looking at it like we're talking about mindfulness, but there's for some reason that's been separated from like training and movement. And like, how is it that there's a personal training course out there that like kind of is cattle, like putting people through like cattle, and it's not integrating mindfulness, presence, and awareness of listening and intuition. Like intuition is just, it's funny that it's not a word that is used in these courses. Is this something that you work with at all, like intuition? Is it like something that you emphasize at all?
Big time on every level known to man. I think it's definitely at the core of what we do. I mean, we don't necessarily like pitch it like that when we're like working with new people, but when people come to us, they don't realize yet often that they actually already have what they need inside of them. They're looking for something external to figure it out, right? Or something new that they've never heard of before, almost as if the solution to their problems are outside of them. And actually, when we start working together, asking the right questions, shining a spotlight on different areas, when we're kind of deep diving into where they're at, they start to actually realize, oh, well, yeah, there is a reason I felt like that. What is it? And when they start to become more aware, that's when they suddenly realize, oh, hello, this inner teacher is there all along. And it's like they kind of get introduced to that within themselves, which is a beautiful thing. And I think that's probably one of the most powerful responses we get from clients after, is they suddenly realize that everything they ever needed was there, and it was their own intuition in the first place, but it just got lost somehow. To go back to your point, what you said there about like training and the mindfulness kind of gets separated somewhere. I think because often a lot of people are looking for a sense of escapism, whether that's through an intense workout or whether that's through them attaching themselves to a goal, a version of them in the future rather than who they are now. They create a sense of separation, which I think that severs that communication of that intuition.
Yeah, okay, yeah, totally. And that's super, super insightful, Charlotte. I think what bums me out about all of this that we're talking about is that it's been cast aside as woo.
Yeah.
Like intuition, like it's not a secular word. The same as intention. They've been mystified. And it's just funny how that happens. And as soon as we do that, we take away the potential benefit for sedentary day-to-day people who can really actually develop a relationship with themselves. And this whole thing with escapism is like ties into the goals and stuff, and of like one day, the idea that one day we'll get there. And like escaping who we are is just like postponing that one day even further. Ironically, is like, if I go to this trip, if I go training and I'm going to lose all this weight, and then one day I'll have the body I want, and I'll feel like I want, and I'll be the person, I'll be able to love myself. One day I'll be enough. And it's just ironic that the very thing that they're trying to escape is the thing that's pushing them away from that experience taking place anyway. It's just the irony of this coaching game is like, now it's just like, it's the complication of what is actually what the person really wants, just to feel enough. They want to feel safe within themselves. And it's funny, we have to go through this like massive process to be like, I was okay all along.
Definitely. Yeah, I that was me in a nutshell, pretty much. So I was that person who thought all of this stuff was very wooey. Is like I've never believed in any of it. It's like it's like what are you talking about? It's like it's physical. You move your body, you eat so-called good food, and you get results. Don't worry about what's going on in your head. You just ignore it and just push through the pain, push through whatever's going on, and just keep going no matter what's happening. And that was basically me. And I used to keep doing that same thing. I was pushing it, trying to get a better physical outward physical appearance, so I would be happy with the way I looked. And every time I would make progress, I was still never happy. I'm still attaining. I'll say, okay, no, I need to lose a bit more weight. I need to put a bit more muscle on. I need to drop a bit more body fat. Whatever it was, I kept going and going, and it took me a while to realize that okay, that whole process is just it's just basically a whole circle of pain, pretty much, because I wasn't getting where I wanted to go. I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't fulfilled at all, no matter how hard I was training, how well I was eating, until I started to connect with my body a bit more, started to connect with my mind and body, and started to think it doesn't matter about how much body fat I have. It doesn't matter about how big I am or how small I am. Because in the end of the day, that's not as what's going to create that sense of fulfillment, and that me being happy. And when I realized that, it wasn't about working towards becoming fulfilled and happy. It was just about being happy with where you are right now. And that doesn't mean that you just think, okay, I have no improvement needed, I don't need to do anything now. It's just meaning I'm happy with where I am, but I still want to grow, mentally, physically, emotionally. But that doesn't mean I can't be happy and fulfilled in the present where I am. Instead of what I was, which was not happy and not fulfilled, and thinking, okay, in 6 months' time, if I look like this, or if I do this, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be fulfilled, I'm going to feel great. And then when that happened, when that 6 months came along, I wasn't happy, I wasn't fulfilled, I didn't feel great. My body was in pain, I was exhausted all the time. And I thought, okay, now I need to up my training even more. I need to now work twice a day. I was training. I need to be really strict with my food. I wouldn't go out and socialize with people. I wouldn't go out for meals, because if it wasn't basically just plain chicken, rice, and broccoli, I couldn't have it. And that was just like, looking back now, it was just like, oh, that was like, I was torturing myself for what? For nothing. To basically kind of is trying to bring that perception of myself out that I thought that I should look like, or I should be like, based on the industry I was in and kind of what was out there at the moment. I have to look this way, I have to do this. And the best way to do it is no pain, no gain. Just get through it, go through it, forget what's in your head, whatever your head's telling you, just forget the pain your body's feeling, and just keep pushing through it. Like you said with like David Goggins, I've watched a lot of his stuff, and I find it very motivational. But for the average person, they're not ex-Navy SEALs, they're not ultra runners or whatever, or triathlon. The average person wants to be healthy, might be lose a bit of weight, and just feel free and just feel energized. And they don't need to kill themselves all the time. They don't need to be 100% strict with what's going into their body. They just need to, again, listen to themselves, have that intuition, and actually find out what works for them, and not just listen to the generic stuff that's out there. And that's, I say, is very important. Once people start listening to themselves and start actually trusting that they have everything they need, they start to find ways that make sense to them, that actually feel enjoyable, that feel effortless, that actually get the result they want with minimal effort.
It's so interesting because
preach it, Jonathan, preach it.
you've both said something that's really like popped into my mind. Like you mentioned, Sean, there about like safety before, people wanting to feel enough, wanting to essentially feel safe. And when you look at someone like David Goggins' story, if you look at his backstory, it was that he was in pain. He was you know, at the raw end of some real suffering when it comes to bullying and racism and all of these things. And that endeavor to just train was to take him into a safe place. And for him, that was in his head and in his body, and building that character that he has. And that's fantastic for him, because it obviously works for him. But we've had one client that, funny enough, he come to us, he's well, he was about 22 now. He was about 19 when he come to us, but he'd been watching Goggins, and he had this solid mindset, but he was still so like pissed off. He was still like really angry at the world still, and he didn't want that for himself or for his family. And one of the things was that he was trying to adopt that persona of, I've got to fight, I've got to push, I've got to live in a world of pain, like you've said. But it just wasn't him. That wasn't his character. He hadn't experienced that, the journey that led to that, but yet he was trying to adopt it because he felt like that was going to be the thing that gave him that fix. And it was incredible to then see his journey after, because he started to adopt the mindset that he needed for him instead of trying to adopt something external. And I think there's just such fine lines between people's identity and the external world, and then how that presents back inside of them.
Yes, word. Yeah, wow, totally. You said something just then about that is everything. Is this not? It's our attachment to the imagery and like the aesthetic, the industry's presentation of health is like, just be like this. Don't worry about what it's going to take. Be like that, and it's like, actually being like that or looking like that and doing those things to at least of what the example of that, like the finished product of that person is, people don't realize like that has come from an internal experience. And to think that we can attach ourselves to the aesthetic and be like, I'm going to be that shape without doing any work, especially without like noticing if that's like for us. Is that for the individual? Is that like, is it being driven by attention or an intention? Is it driven by lack? Because right now you're not enough, and one day it'll look like the image and the example that is in front of them of what they've been sold to as health. Or it's just like, it just gets me. It gets me that's it's funny that that's not the thing. That's the expectation. That's all that needs to take place, is like, just be like that person without having done any of the internal work. It's like playing, it's like putting on, like, it's like going on stage and acting without knowing who you are. And it's going to come out in all these weird ways, because they don't even know how to use their body. They don't know how they hold their face, and they don't even know how to express an emotion clearly and cleanly, because they don't even know how they do that within themselves. And so when like you go on stage, or when you go and when there's an image or an identity of a person and trying to be that person, it's going to come out really weird. Like, it's just so funny how that's a thing.
It's so true. We have a very specific kind of process that we go through with, or a specific journey, let's say, when people come to work with us, and they always want to skip ahead to the bit that we call reset, which is where they get to discharge old emotion, they get to reset their nervous system and all these other cool things that we do. But they want to go straight there. They don't want to do that self-discovery phase. They don't want to discover that person. And it's like, well, listen, we can go straight into reset, but that's going to last like 5 minutes. It's just not going to be a conducive use of anybody's time and effort and energy. But when you actually drive those changes from knowing who you truly are, that's when we believe that lasting transformation can stick, you know?
Listening. This is, and I think that's where it's like, where this is the catch to health, is like, if someone hasn't been listening for years to their body, and if they've just been ignoring themselves and their feelings, their emotions, and just trying to fix the person in the mirror, then when it does come to it, oh man, all that stuff has to be felt. It's like there's no choice in the matter. It has to be felt, like who we are, the shame, the anger, the joy, the light in us, all of these things, just the excitement, and then knowing what to do with it. That at first we have to like actually allow ourselves to really feel all of it. And that, if we haven't been taking responsibility for our emotions and feelings, or for what we put into our body, what we use our body for, if we don't take responsibility for that, and suddenly you get this wave of like, fuck, this is actually me. But they're just like, no, that's not me. no, I want to point the finger at everyone else, because suddenly they're just like riddled with all the shame of that experience. And it's like, no. And so it's a very precarious time when we drop into actually listening to ourselves. It's like how much do you want it? Because that is what's going to get us through this. It's like the belly is actually, are we willing to listen to ourselves in order to be healthy? Because if we're not, we're going to attempt it and it's going to be fucking savage. And then we're going to stop and then be like, no, it doesn't work. Listening's bullshit, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm off to the pub.
that was me, like, for so long. Like, I was really dissociated and I didn't even know it until I heard of what dissociation meant, which is where you almost detach from who you are in the way you've just described. And I still didn't really associate with the label. Like, even when I heard it, it took a little bit of time for me to be like, okay, well, I've reached this point for some reason. So give a bit of context. I was always like, you know, the happy one on the outside. I was like a good leader, and I was working in the commercial fitness space. I was managing teams. Got to a point where I was managing lots of teams, and it was great. Like, on the surface level, everything looked good. I had the job, you know, the relationship, the finance, and all the rest of it. But actually, I was just on autopilot. I was just living the life I thought I should be. And but then I had like this kind of wake up call. But it was like, I would have described it then as like being a really negative wake up call. Now I think it's probably one of the most beautiful experiences I could have ever been through. But at that time, it was awful. It was like, I didn't have a grip on my own emotions. I didn't have a grip on my own thinking. I was just totally looking for an escape. And I was experiencing suicidal ideation. I was showing up to the outside world as one thing. Internally, I was imploding, and it was awful. But I had to go through that to make myself listen. Right. And it was when that point, when I started to listen, I was able to think, okay, well, now I can navigate this in the way that's useful. Right. But it took some time to get there. I mean, that sounds a bit simplified, but it took some time to navigate that. But the reality is, I had the choice where I could, you know, get to that tipping point and stay down, or whether I wanted to actually start to understand what I was hearing from myself, mentally, emotionally, and physically, because I knew that there was a better way than what there was. And I think that very much comes down to the listening, like you've said, and then setting that intention that you obviously are so passionate about, as to, okay, well, what's next here? How am I going to process this?
Yeah. And is there a way that you would do that? Is there a way that you, when working with the clients, the specific way that you will help draw that out, or is it just a case of listening to them?
It's always a case of listening. We have a very specific blueprint that we work through clients with, which we call the 4-phase human blueprint, which is where we take them through a phase of discovery, we take them through a phase of resetting, then alignment, and then future proofing, so that they sort of leave with all of the skills that they really need after they've really paved their own way. Obviously, there's certain techniques and tools that we use within those phases, and it's unique for everybody, but it is very much about deep diving and listening, understanding, okay, well, where are there some things that this person needs to be aware of, and not necessarily about themselves. They'll come to their own conclusions about where they are in the big picture, but sometimes just understanding how the mind works, understanding how we're all just wandering around this world attaching our own meanings to stuff. Like, when they start to realize actually we're wired a certain way, and actually when you start to understand that, and you start to understand the purpose of emotions, you can start to, again, like, navigate it, and you can start to actually look and say, okay, well, if that's the case, how can I leverage this, or how can I listen to this part of me even more, and how can I bring all this together so I feel whole and feel like I'm enough and feel safe in the world, so I don't have to live in this stressed out place where my nervous system is just on alert all the time. You know, they kind of come to that conclusion very early on, don't they? But it's within that process that they tend to
Amazing.
do the work they need.
Sounds like you guys are doing incredible work. and again touched on that, like, something so important, which is again, it's savage. I mean, that's why I've got Kali, the Hindu goddess, on my forearm. It's like, because this is savage. It's rough. When you get the ignorance shown to you, like, it's brutal. And one of the things which you touched on there about meaning, it's controversial in a way, because we've had many people have so much of their life chosen for them in terms of their meaning of what life is, whether that's through religion or through cultural preference or sexual preference, and the ideologies around male and female and all these different things, countries, all the labels we use. Just like seeing that those are someone's meanings that have come before us. And actually, like, I love that you said that, because it's the separation between like what's happening and the story. It's like, what's the experience based on feeling, based on our nervous system processing the experience internally, externally. And then what are we attaching? What are we choosing to attach? Because we can rewrite that, and we give meaning to everything. But there's just it now that takes place, and it's hilarious that I just find it funny that like I get caught up in the story so quickly. And I was like, I was like lying in bed last night. I was like, oh, that's not my story. That's no, that is my story. Hang on, this is just, I'm doing that thing again. And it's just like this neurosis that comes in. It's like, oh, what's happening? I'm lying in bed. Bedtime. And so it's just like, it's amazing how quickly it can come in and out. But as soon as we recognize what's playing out, the mind playing out, and being able to watch it, being able to watch the story unfold and not attaching ourselves to it through meditation and other things, being able to practice that ability to just be able to watch it and be able to see that it's just conditioning, and then we can recondition. Just like, first we have to put shampoo, and then we have to put a conditioner. We've got to clean that shit, and then we can like let that shit become really clear. It's interesting. Do you work much on like the separation of story and experience, like physical, in terms of like the physical and the mental?
Yeah, so there's always different layers, and you've got to meet a client or anybody really where they are, right? So we could go down a very esoteric route there of like, what is all of this meaning for, and where is it coming from, and all of that. But the reality is, clients come to us when they're stressed, when they are in the story. They are so in the story, they don't even know they can get out of the story, but there's this inner yearning that you can, right? It's like they kind of believe that they can, otherwise they wouldn't be talking to us in the first place. But they're so in the story that we have to just, like I said earlier, is show them, okay, well, this is the playing field. This is how you're almost designed as a human being. And then they get to navigate where that fits into their story. And then they have these little light bulb moments throughout where they're like, oh, so this could actually mean that instead. It's like, what do you think? And like,
right,
it could
okay,
be.
yeah.
I'll give you an example. There was a very simple day-to-day example of a client recently that was working with, and he had a friend go visit him. He's living in another country, so he had a friend to go visit him, and he spent a lot of time on his mobile phone when he was supposed to be hanging out with his friend. And he was really, really pissed off about it. He was not happy. He was like, well, he's come all this way and he's not even talking to me. He doesn't care. He created all of these meanings and stories inside of his own head that, you know, there was a big problem now within that friendship, within how he's obviously then showing up in the situations and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, what else could it mean? Right, that he's on his phone, and this guy comes up with all these different ideas, and I'm like, is there anything you could have almost deleted from your experience that doesn't actually mean those things? And he said then, oh, well, they did spend money and time and annual leave and these things to come and visit me in another country. And I kind of ignored that when I'm thinking that this person doesn't care about me just because they've been on their phone so much. It's like, it was just such a paradigm shift for that person to be like, whoa, there's a whole other story I could have attached there. And I just completely neglected the idea. And that's something super simple, but I think it's lots of little moments like that helps people to realize they're making stuff up all the time. Right? And when they realize they're making stuff up, that's when they realize that they can start to create. They can come from a place of creating their experiences rather than a place of just receiving them and expecting them. And I think that that's probably the main focus we have when we're helping people when it comes to story and experience, and obviously encouraging them to come back into the present moment and what that looks like for them.
Definitely. And that's kind of where that's kind of that process, that first phase, that discovery, where we just teach people to become more aware. And that's kind of the key, especially because most people, majority of the population, spend so much time in a heightened state of stress for no reason that they're completely unaware. Their logical thinking is out the window. It doesn't exist. So they buy into everything that's around them. They just latch on to any story they can take, and then they start to believe it's their own. But when you can teach people to become more aware of their thoughts, of their emotions, of what they're putting into the body, how they're moving, all these things, and get them to think from a place, a more resourceful place, they can then take a step back and start to think, okay, let's look at this from an outside perspective, looking in and thinking, okay, is this something that I want to believe in? Is this something I want to latch onto? Is it serving me? Is it not serving me? And they can make the decision, because everyone has a choice on how they want to kind of live out their reality. And that's it, is like, you can have one thing that could be good for one person and bad for another person, but then the person who's that one thing is good for, they'll probably shout out about it and go, this thing's amazing, it's good, everyone should do it. And then when someone comes, no, this is bad, they will defend it to high heaven as no, this is good because it works for me, it's like good for me. And that's the difference, is you can have two opposing things that exist in the same time. Like you can have something that is good and is bad at the same time, because it depends on the person's perspective and how they take it on as their own reality. And once people can become more aware of that and accepting of that, just because it works for you or someone else doesn't mean it works for everyone, and you don't have to buy into everything that's around you. Someone can have their opinion on this, whether you agree with it or not, and it doesn't fit into your model of the world. You can accept that and still have your opinion without having to get stressed out about it and worked up and all those unresourceful emotions and kind of thoughts that come with that feeling. And you can start to live in that kind of point of neutrality, where you think everything is as it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And you decide whether to buy into it or not. You decide whether you want to keep that in your model of the world and you want to latch onto it and live by those values or those standards or not. And I think when people can start to realize that nothing is generic and everything is based on their own perception and their own choices, then I think people will start to become, I think, a bit more relaxed. I think stress will start to become a thing of the past, because stressed, if you know that like there is no good or bad, there is no right or wrong, everything is what it is. It's your perception of it that makes it that you stress yourself out. You cause your own stress, no one else. Like I've worked with many people in the past who, at the time, I thought used to cause my stress, but it was me causing my own stress because I didn't have that same belief system or those same values as they did, and that used to annoy me. And because that used to annoy me, it used to stress me out. And I used to just go around and go, oh, this person's getting on my nerves, they're stressing me out. And it took me a while to realize that no, I was doing that. It was my decision, my choice to let that happen. But I didn't know it because I was living in that story. I was in the middle of it. I wasn't thinking resourcefully. And when you're in that, it is challenging to see the light, to see the up, and it does take, and that's why people come to us. That's why people go to other coaches, is because they just need that. They need that guidance and that bit of advice on how to do that, and because they might have been living in it for so long that they forgot how to do it. And that's the thing. And we're there just to help people remember, and we help them to become more aware. And once they do, they start to find the answers themselves.
It's official, guys. You guys are Space Shamans. That's it. Space Shamans, colorful Space Shamans. I'm absolutely loving what both of you are saying. It's amazing. The message you're holding is extremely powerful, and yeah, it's vital, this approach to, because your image and your brand, what you're putting out, is real. It's like the pair of you, it's that you guys are very real. It's not like, you know, as much as I say you guys Space Shamans, which I strongly stick to, is that is the way that you are able to present these things to the secular world, and in a way that sounds crisp and clear. It's really important. It's really important work. And with that, again, this is like, how do these things land for you? Like how do things land with your clients? Do you ever present it in a way where you say, are you making a choice? Is this a choice? Or because, yeah, is that something that you are clear about, or do you weave it into the work naturally?
It's weaved into the work naturally. It's always kind of underpinning, because we have to be careful when we say this is stress as a choice, because there's a fine line between trauma and stress as well, and different experiences people have had. And I think it's when we're communicating with anybody, like you said earlier, it's about listening to where they're coming from so we can meet them where they are. And a big part of that has been really helping them to just see that they always have a choice. So it's not about us saying, are you choosing stress, or are you choosing this, or are you choosing that? It's that saying, what are you choosing? And helping them actually understand that they are making choices in every moment. Okay, they've been through maybe traumatic experiences. They're living in a stressful world in their model of the world. And it's about them knowing that it's possible to come out of that. And I think that's the biggest key, just letting them know they have a choice, not judging their choices.
Word. To have a choice, but not judging the choices. That's so important. I'm just going to let that land a second. Because it's rough choice. It's like the thing we've been putting off all these years by ignoring our physical body and our sensations and emotions that come with it, is that as soon as we, and being stuck in that child pattern, the attachment to the parent and needing, is like, as soon as we recognize, like, okay, I'm an adult now, I'm not a child, so why am I still behaving like one? Oh fuck, what's an adult? An adult is responsible for their choices. Like, fucking, I've got to take responsibility for all my choices, all of them, really? Yes, you do. And it's like, oh fuck. Oh my God, all of them? It's like, yes, Sean, every choice you make is your responsibility to experience. And that is rough. It's rough. And being able to alchemize that sensation of like, and this is where I come at, is that, like, the way I approach it is like alchemizing tension into intention, and taking that physical discomfort of like, or the story of physical discomfort, into I'm overwhelmed now, this is only going to go one way, is like, or that overwhelm is just the child suddenly realizing they're the adult. And it's just like, oh no, life's too much. It's like, you're an adult now, okay, I can choose to change this in the way that suits me, however I'm feeling now, being able to alchemize overwhelm into empowerment. And that's really where like I'm coming at from, with my certainly have worked through my own trauma, and recognizing like this process has come out of my own experience. So when it comes down to listen, play, love, and empower, and seeing that they have a corresponding tension, is ignorance, stress, neglect, and overwhelm. If I can flip over that moment, I recognize I'm overwhelmed now, into I'm empowered. This is me and my body. I'm an individual adult, and this is my authentic experience. Being like, okay, I've come back into this space of feeling empowered again, and actually the same experience my nervous system's having can just be completely switched around. And the more I practice that, and the more I help other people practice that, or at least they practice it because it's their choice, is like that alchemy is everything. It's being able to change the story based on feeling in the moment. That can't happen if we're it can't happen if we're drinking, if we're taking drugs, if we're escaping, if we're finding ways to ignore our body. None of that can happen. We have it's a necessity to be here if we're going to be able to flip these things around, if we're going to be able to take ourselves, if we're going to be able to grow ourselves out of these patterns. And just seeing it in so many people that I've come in contact with in my life, it's like there's still this. It takes me into the rite of passage. It's like, okay, that attachment's there because we don't have a rite of passage in our culture, in our society, in the West anyway. Certainly, it's like rife. I think a large part of this is like we haven't had the detachment from the parent. There's no point where it's like, you might go to uni and be like, all right, go have fun. Yeah, just enjoy that. But it's not a clear, your responsibility now. Everything is on you. It's your call. Sort your shit out. It's all on you. I've done my very best to get you here. How do you feel about rite of passage? Certainly in your own selves and like your own perspective of it.
I think I to echo really what you just said there is like people growing out of patterns and just into other patterns they've witnessed, that they've not created their own rite of passage, that they haven't almost defined what they believe an adult is, right? They've just adopted the generic collective description of what being an adult means. Like you described it there as, oh no, I'm an adult now, I've got to take responsibility for every choice. But actually, but that could be so much fun, right? It depends how you're defining it and what meanings you've already attached to that label. So I think if we could collectively always be redefining on our own terms what we expect from ourselves or what we would like to create in our world, then I think everybody would be pretty happy. I mean, for sure there's got to be some alignment for the world to function, but how cool would it be when we were kids to have our parents sit down and say, cool, you're going to be an adult soon, what does that mean to you? Right? Like nobody ever said that to us. I didn't even realise I was an adult when I was an adult.
Why didn't you say that, Mum?
Do you know what I mean? But how good would it be to really be so reflective at a younger age so that we can actually start creating our own passage? Because I think then we would actually all live from a place of truth and a place of real alignment internally, which I think would naturally just help the world live in alignment as well.
Yeah, so important. And to say like, and it needs to be in alignment with the world we live in, because there's a lot of ideology around, or that's not the right word. It's just the idea that like it's one or the other. There's no, I find this with the spiritual community in the past of, it almost becomes dogmatic or religious in a way because we hop into another box. We go into another box and it's like either this box works, it's either spiritual or it's Babylon. And it's just like, what? Surely there has to be an integration. Like if we're talking like if spirituality is talking about like creating a better world, then surely that has to include integration.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive thing that is underneath that, is like there isn't that integration as much as I'd want to see it from a community that preaches acceptance.
It's so interesting you say that, because that's been a big part of our journey as well. I mean, it's especially mine when it comes to accessing essentially a spiritual side of myself. I didn't even know it existed. As I described earlier, totally just like living in my own, what more is there than that? That's how I used to think, right? But the reality is like, as I went on my own journey and I started to do some internal healing and letting go of past emotions and past experiences and all the rest of it, I then felt like I unlocked this different world of spirituality. Like, it just suddenly hit me, well, this stuff exists, this stuff's real, and I'm experiencing it, I can feel it, you know.
Feel it,
And then, but then when I'm talking to people on like an everyday basis, in terms of clients, for example, they're where I was, or in their own version of where I was, obviously, but there's just such a big gap, and there's no bridge. And what we've realized is that actually, when we can help people to just let go of that unhealthy stress, they get to stop worrying about themselves and start thinking about something much bigger and much deeper. So I found it really hard to integrate. I remember, like, we was living in Dubai before, and you know, it's quite a busy city, and it's got its own character as a city, but we was just like totally like removed from it all of a sudden. It's like I would go into a meditation and I would stay there, like I would still be there, and I had to find a way to find that balance and integrate that experience with everyday life. And I found that really, really challenging, especially when you're surrounded by so many different people in different places and different mentalities, and they're on their own journeys. I'm not sure if this is making any sense, I'm just kind of rambling now, but it's I found it hard to integrate in the beginning. But I think when we coupled that with our purpose of what we do, with our time and our effort, with wellness theory, that's when we was like, whoa, actually it was all about meaning for us, right? So we obviously have our own belief systems about the universe and whatever, but the thing is, we don't push that upon anybody. People get there naturally themselves. Like, by the end of coaching, people are like, oh, what do you think about me reading this book or that book? And all of a sudden they're actually starting to think in a slightly different way. It's like they've opened a new door that they didn't know existed within themselves, and then they go on that journey, because it's a very individual journey, I think. And there's so much out there at the moment, especially if you look in the world of social media. It's like spirituality, you have to look a certain way, you have to be doing this or doing that, and it's like, that's not it, like, for us anyway.
Well, it's just as soon as you start labeling anything, you start putting people into boxes, and then that starts creating disconnect,
which is the opposing.
Exactly, which is the opposite of what spirituality is. And that's the thing, is like, everyone is spiritual. We all have that sense. The only problem is we forgot how to use it. We forgot it's there. And that's, I think, the key with people is spirituality is different for everyone. You don't have to get rid of all your possessions and get rid of your money and live a very nomadic lifestyle. You basically just need to connect with yourself and understand that you are one, but also you are part of a whole. And that's the difference. Is if you want to be able to help others and connect with others, you need to connect with yourself first. And by doing that, you connect with others. It's kind of that kind of paradox type of thing, is where if you want to tap into your version of spirituality, you've got to connect and tap into your inner self. And everything is connected by energy. So once you start doing that, you start to, like Charlotte said, you start to find your meaning and your purpose, and what it is that you really want to do. It's not what you're already passionate about, but it's something that feels right and feels like, okay, this is the direction I'm meant to go in. And then that's that connection between you being an individual as one, but also being connected to the whole, which is every person, everything, the whole planet, the universe, all that type of stuff. And it's not, you don't have to join like a spiritual group or a yoga group or anything like this to feel that. You just need to understand who you are first, because otherwise you get sucked into those boxes of, okay, I'm into spirituality now, which means I've got to dress this way, I've got to act this way, I've got to get rid of this, I've got to do it. And that's not what it is. Well, it's like Charlotte said, it's not our version of it anyway. It might be someone else's version, but our version of spirituality is just something that is expansive. It's out there. It's like we all experience it. Just most of us forget how to.
Right. Yeah. So it's like semantics, isn't it? And boxes are safe, aren't they? They give a clear border and a clear boundary. And it's like, I think the more I've noticed that is actually everyone's moving into a box for safety's sake. It just allowed me to develop that compassion for people who aren't me, and taking myself into my own, or making my own boxes, and then making rabbit holes, and then going down, and then just coming out with bare intentions. And and recognizing that's just me finding safety as well. Like going down a rabbit hole is like also another form of a box, and it's just trying to develop that compassion for myself, through myself, with myself, and then out the other side for others. Because it's like, as soon as, if we just, it's the same as for me, seeing the same thing of like attachment to imagery is like our attachment to must be compassionate to all beings without loving ourselves and understanding how to be compassionate for ourselves is just, is martyrdom. And we're only going to end up just emptying our bucket and our cup to be compassionate around everyone, and just, I've got to be compassionate, I've got to love everybody. And it's just like, mate, you've completely forgotten about yourself. You're living on the street, you've got no clothes on, sort your shit out. And it's just, yeah, it's finding that, again, it's got to start from the inside out. It can't be outside in. And this is why it's in tension. This is why I've specifically like built more meaning around intention, and looking at much of my about 13 years of my life was on a spiritual path, and now letting go of that path, letting go of the of plant medicine, letting go of yogic approaches, letting go of these different things and integrating it into my own authentic way, which is actually it's just a changing of the label. And I'm just trying to find the most objective, relatable word possible for spiritual is intent. It's like, are you intentional? We can look at that as like, in any way, it's like, are you conscious? Are you choosing? Are you spiritual? Because we can, like, it's just a framework which anyone can pop their understanding of meaning through. But for it to be seen, it has to be embodied through our physical tension and our body and our behavior. So for me, it's like, I had like a massive mission of being able to bridge the gap. I just want to be able to bridge the gap and demystify things that are preventing people from getting this, like from connecting and from really understanding who they are. So that's why I've used tension and intention, because those are the broadest words I could use, but also hold the essence of the work that is taking place. It's like the choice. And like you were saying before, like choice, as I was describing, like becoming an adult, choice doesn't, like, it can be overwhelming, but like you're saying, it can be reframed. And that's why listen, play, love, and empower, just like looking at these four as channels that we can choose to drop into. It's like, am I going to play? Like, is it my choice to play? Is my choice to love? Is my choice to empower? Is my choice just to listen? Is it to develop wisdom? Is it to develop a excitable expression and self-expression? Is it to develop care and comfort? Or is it develop this inner warrior, the strength in me, the shield? And these all just, this just simplifying these frameworks as much as possible. Because like what we've been talking about, the whole conversation is like, Jonathan, you were tapping, well, both of you have been tapping into this like point of like, there is the universal idea, and then being able to flip that inside of us, there's the inner universe as well, like the microcosm, macrocosm. And it's like, oh my God, everything is a lot. But actually, if we can just simplify it into, okay, what do we want to do with this everything? That to me is kind of like where I'm coming at this from, is like, what do you want to do with now? And letting that flow go that way. And that is hard. It's not to say like simple is easy or hard, good or bad. It's just to say that, like, in terms of actually being able to create a framework for people, that is for myself first and foremost. That's just, I have like such as this explanation now, I have a way of convoluting and confusing and complicating what the point is I'm trying to get across, the message. And so my message is now 2 words, intention and tension, and then the corresponding 4 intentions and the 4 tensions, just to simplify like experience and behavior as much as possible, so that a 6-year-old could understand it. Because really,
Yeah.
oftentimes we're working with kids.
And that's beautiful though, because we have to meet people where they are, like, and that's the reality, is that people are spinning so many plates. Some are living in a story, well, their story, and they're confusing it with other people's stories, and they're holding all of this emotion and energy and thought patterns and tension inside their system, inside their being, and they need to hear different frameworks, and people will really resonate with that, because it is simple. It's something that, okay, if I'm busy with my job or my family or my health and these kinds of things, if I'm letting those things overwhelm me, I understand the word intention. I can start to go deeper down that rabbit hole. It's less overwhelming, and I think the work you're doing is really, really powerful, because it brings it into people's awareness where perhaps it wasn't before, and then they go deeper down that rabbit hole with you when they resonate with you. And I think you've got a really nice way of delivering what it is you do as well, from seeing your different characters and stuff as well. I think it's really powerful.
Thanks. Yeah, I strongly recommend that no one joins me down my rabbit hole. It's odd. Go down your own. Stay out of my hole. Yeah, it's thank you. Yeah, it's been a process to say the least, and it's been happening for a year now. Like it's been about 14 months of bare intentions, and it's changed my life. Like it really, I have been on a conscious journey of integrating my experiences over the last through my 20s and whittling it down and turning it inside out. So it'd be like, this is actually who I am. These are my thought processes. Let's have a look at them, as odd as they are. They're reflections of the world around me. So enjoy them, because they're equally ours. And it's and seeing who connects with what character, who connects with what poems, and being able to see those as people connecting with certain characters or certain poems. That's just a mirror for connecting with characters and emotions on the outer world. Like that's what I'm doing with Bear, is reflecting my experience of the world around me. And if someone understands that, it's because we share that experience. And if they get triggered by it, it's because there's something in there as well for them. There's still gold in there. So yeah, it's going to be a slow burn, I think, Bear. I think it's going to take a while for people to understand what I'm actually doing. And I've actually got my first performance in, I think it's going to be, in a month's time. My first, like, debut public performance, like intentionally in front of a crowd.
Wow.
Not many. I don't think it will be like heaps of people, but there's a co-working space here that's called Kelp here in Edinburgh in Portugal, and they've kindly offered for me to share a talk on my 4 years of intention, and also to do a bare intentions performance, and turning that into like half performance, half workshop, and actually starting to let the cat out of the bag and help and get people playing, getting people playing, and letting. It's really kind of, it's funny because I say much of the time I'm working with kids. I mean, like the child that's trapped inside, that is gagging to come out and be able to like join the world and be able to grow. It's like we've got a tree inside a tree, and there's one, like the tree that's inside is the kid, and that being able to grow up inside the other tree is what's going to give that bigger tree, the adult, real stability and security and safety. And if we can develop that inner plant, the inner tree, and let it blossom and bloom, then we're going to have a creative, healthy, balanced adult that has a clear foundation and that is solid, but also can express themselves with color and in any way they want to.
Nice. Make sure you record that performance. We want to see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will make sure that it's recorded. I'll want to see it as well because I'm a narcissist. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's exciting. I'm really excited. I've just started learning a poem called "The Great Urge," which actually touches on much we've been talking about, which is it's about life. It's about the journey of life and self-expression and energy. First and foremost, it's just about energy and intent. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there. I'm hoping to just keep this ball rolling through this way of performance. Where do you guys see yourselves going with this? Have you got like I remember last time you were mentioning about like expanding this. Have you got any further plans that have come up for you?
Well, we're in the process of relocating to Thailand. Actually, we were supposed to be there like when
February, I think.
February, and obviously with the pandemic situation, we're still in the UK, which I think is where we're supposed to be, ironically, for now. But we're obviously going over there just because it resonates with us, but also because we're going to be hosting a lot more events and immersive experiences, because we want to be able to help as many people as we can. We want them to be able to unlock a sense of health and well-being and meaning in purpose in their lives and be part of that journey. And a big part of that is that connection element. And it's fantastic what we do. We love what we do, working with people like on one-on-one sessions and on online, obviously at the moment as well. But that's where we're headed with that. And we're also partnering with a business called Business for Good, who basically help individuals and businesses to contribute to the global goals and global initiatives. And that's something that what we've found is on our own journey, the more we've kind of taken care about ourselves on such a deep level, we've been able to give more to others, our clients, but also we've had the like such a calling to be able to help on a big picture scale as well with a lot of the global issues we're seeing. And we noticed that same patterns has occurred with clients that we work with. You know, when they stop worrying about themselves, they start worrying about the world, right? And they start worrying about, okay, well, what's happening over here or over there? And I think there's such a shift happening, you know, on a community level, that it's just the way forward, I think, for people who are more conscious and who are unlocking that sense of compassion, not only internally, but externally as well. And we're going to be working through that partnership more and how we're going to be contributing as well. So that's pretty much all we can say at this point. But that's kind of where we're headed. Yeah.
Amazing, guys. I'm super excited for you both. This is cool. Wow. Yeah, what exciting times. Like, and I love that you're seeing that staying in the UK has been like, this is meant to be happening right now. That's cool. And just like practicing what you preach, being able to flip it into like. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, everything happens. Everything happens for a reason, really. So you're meant to be where you're meant to be.
Yeah, we had a point
if you're a reasonable person.
Because, like, we've literally been in the Middle East for the last like 7 years, and we were supposed to pop back for like a visit en route to where we were going, just to, you know, see family, reconnect and such. And obviously, like, what we've come back into an environment where actually before we left, we wasn't as conscious as what we are now, and that's come with its own challenges as well. And it's also been fantastic lessons and learnings, and being able to adapt and really practicing a lot of the things that we thought we knew in more challenging situations. And it's been really interesting. So yeah, we kind of have flipped it, and there's definitely been a sense of surrender and more inner work that is always there to be done, I think, on some level. And yeah, it's been beautiful, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has. It's definitely been grateful for the experience. It's been, again, we've been able to see kind of family for a lot longer period than what we had originally planned. So it's always an upside.
Definitely.
Wicked, guys. It's amazing, isn't it? Speaking of family, is there like has there been any noticeable healthy impact or shifts within your family dynamics, if you don't mind me asking? Like, the work that you've done, has that like spilled out into your family relationships?
I guess some of them,
Yeah, to a certain extent.
To the people who are more open to the idea, and that's the thing, is not everyone's ready.
Not everyone's ready for Space Shamans. What can you say?
Exactly. No one's ready for that.
But it's been really interesting though, because like we didn't come out with any intention to, like, you know, to change anything, or we just, our intention was just to come back and be present and be with people and just experience life with them. And as a result of that, with this stealing of communication, people ask questions. They're like, well, how's this, how's that? I mean, John's family thinks I hypnotized him from when he left to when he's come back, and like the transformation that's happened now. I'm like, honestly, it's all him, it was nothing to do with me, honest.
Witchcraft.
but then that's the thing, but they are inspired by it, because they've seen changes. And I think and obviously I can't speak for everybody here, but it's a lot of what we are doing, they feel they're living vicariously through us in many ways, and they've said that, and I think that reveals a lot from their side as well. And I just think there is some positive change, but to pinpoint exactly what it is and for who would be presumptuous.
Right here, totally. That's cool. That's lush. I'm so glad that that's the case, because that's just, I feel like the nature of the work is like either it like develops in these ways, it like inspires. It's either going to do one or two things. Either, I think, inspire or trigger, and those will have different volumes, as all things do. And it's like just trusting that both of those lead to somewhere that is greater than the world we're living in now. And there's just like the want for balance, the natural want for balance. And if there's some inspiration, there also needs to be trigger with that, and to make sure there's balance, like to be able to work through them. Otherwise, imagine if everyone was inspired in one go. It's like the world is suddenly inspired. Like, oh my God, everything's happening. So yeah, I think that there's definitely, certainly noticed that in my family and my relationships, and that's all I can hope for, is that, you know, not caring about who me being me affects, but staying really inside myself and being like, I am being me, and that is enough. And understanding the intent that is driving me there, like the messages I'm holding, and being like, that's okay. It's not to say I disregard other people's feelings and like lack compassion. It's the opposite. It's like having so much for myself that I can spill out and hold it for others, because that's been my process. Is like, I cared so much about what other people, how they felt, what they think, who they are, like cared so much about the external, that I lost myself. And it meant that, I just wasn't in me. I wasn't me. Because I was so big, and I was just like, the care turned into actual anxiety, and I was actually like trying to create safety mechanisms so that I can protect and control the environment. If I know that they're feeling like this, and I can stop this thing from happening. And it's just like, it's like playing pat ball with like 1,000 balls at once. just like, hang on, I don't enjoy this. I've forgotten that I'm actually enjoying my body. And so now it's just starts with me. It has to start with me. That's why I sit in meditation first thing for me in the morning, and then come out from there, and letting this process unfold from the inside out. Because outside in didn't work for 30 years. But this way seems to be working a lot nicer for me.
I think that's beautiful that you see the way forward, and you know yourself well enough to know how that experience needs to be for you. I think something that popped up when you were saying that was about this idea of inside out and outside in. What if we was just to realize that it's all the same, and actually like, do you know what, when something occurs in my outside world, let's say a family member does get triggered or whatever, or is doing them in their own way, is always bring it back. Why have I created this? Why have I created this in my world right now? What is there I need to be learning from this? What is it I need to be doing right now? And I think that's definitely helped me coming back into old environments. That's definitely helped.
Yeah, for me, I've always been type of person. I never used to really care about what other people thought, to the point where when the other way, where I wouldn't care about their feelings either, of what would happen if they got annoyed with me. I just whatever. But now I do it with a bit more mindfulness. So I still don't care what other people think, but I will choose how much to kind of bring out and how much to hold back, depending on the person, like the person I'm with. Because it's, again, I'm still not changing who I am, but I just don't show as much of that person, because I know that some family members or some people that I know, it gets a bit, it can kind of create a bit of disease in that environment. It gets a bit uncomfortable. So right. Everyone has their own way. Some people are still living on that surface, superficial level, and that's okay for them. That's and it's not for me to try and change that. It's not for me to kind of interrupt their story, really, because it's their story. So I can only live mine, and then just know when and where to, well, bring more of my true self out, or hold a little bit back, just in case. It's it creates that bit of conflict there. But like at the end of the day, it's you're going to get people who are not going to resonate with what you're doing, and because it is a bit out there for most people, and I haven't got to that point yet. Like if I told you that, yeah, great, if I have a conversation, you can heal yourself without anything else. You just need to know how to do it. You're going to think I'm nuts, and most people do. So you don't go running around to everybody you meet going, you can heal yourself from pain. You can heal yourself from what you got, because they're just going to go, what the hell are you on about? Like, you're nuts.
What have you been smoking?
Yeah, what you've been smoking, what you've been taking, and that's it. It's like,
give me some.
Yeah, exactly.
Quickly, I need to fix it quickly. Give me what you're smoking. I'll buy it off you, and then it just goes into this. I'll buy health.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to be more mindful about the people you spend time with, and like I know I don't spend as much time with certain people because I know there's just a kind of a conflict between my energy and theirs, and the type of person I am compared to the type of person they are. So it's like I do limit the amount of time I spend with that person, because I know that the energies they don't match up. And
you showering your energy onto the other person makes the other person feel very uncomfortable. Yes. But you want them in your life, right? Because we don't choose the people that we're surrounded by. We don't choose necessarily our family. That could be up for discussion as well, but we won't go there.
But we can choose the kind of the amount of energy and the time we want to put out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that just comes as a experience of being a responsible adult, of being able to watch, like seeing that. It's just that it can't happen if you don't know yourself. Sounds like you guys know yourself very fucking well. And yeah, I totally feel you. I mean, it's taken me a good, well, it took me, 29 years to really come out of the creative closet, of being able to be like, no, like, this is what I want to share with the world. Like, I didn't even know it was in me, like these characters, this poetry, and like that's taken like the last 2 years to really draw out. Almost 3 years now of just kind of like, of bringing these out to the surface, like first writing poetry to myself, then it was like sharing it out, then it was doing poetry slams, and then it was actually just like sharing with my family, writing my family poetry, and then like gifting it out, and then it was last year sharing it on Instagram, sharing it with the world, and then being able to create the characters around this time, and then slowly being like, oh, I really enjoy this, and actually it's fucking nuts on the outside, but the intent behind what I'm doing is like, I know, so that's enough. And if people are listening, because they're feeling their body and their experience, then the stuff will land, the message will land. But if they're not listening, if they're not playful, if they're not, loving or compassionate, and able to look through the aesthetic of the characters, which are distractions anyway, missing the point of what I'm saying. And that's cool as well, because I'm not doing it for them. It's like I'm just allowing myself to really come out to the surface, and that's been a huge relief, because I'm just like on a daily basis, I'm able to let my child out, just go out, and that now now it just feels like I'm just a healthy adult playing. It doesn't feel like I'm a child that has no boundaries. It's like a very clear, distinct point that I'm getting across. And that's what I meant by like growing the tree. And the tree is like actually getting to that point myself and feeling stable enough to have my roots, but also have like this, the colorful canopy as well, being able to be like, this is the point. This is the point I'm trying to make. It's just like, let it out, because that has nothing to do with like coming out the closet. It has nothing to do with sexuality. That's the myth that we've been sold. It's actually everything to do with being a healthy adult. And that's a massive message which I'm looking to get out to people, is actually like, come out the creative closet, because it is gay, and that's old school gay. It's like, it is joyous. That is where excitement comes out. It's like, that's where, and that's again, is like being outlandish or like bright. It has nothing to do with like the image of what pride or the rainbow stands for. This is actually has everything to do with what the rainbow stands for and pride within ourselves. Being able to be like, this is me authentically, and actually being able to integrate and or being able to just develop my own meaning, or take it back to like a broader meaning of the stuff that we're talking about. So yeah, that's a massive one for me, is actually just destigmatizing creativity itself. Sorry guys, I was just going to ask, given that this is the Bare Intentions podcast and the nature of what I'm doing is integrating creativity and health together, is there anything that you do specifically other than creating your own incredible lives and wearing creatively like colorful clothing and stuff? Is there anything that you do specifically to create and express?
So I unlocked, I would say, I came out of my creativity closet a few years ago when we was living in the Middle East, painting. I really like to paint. It's something that I haven't really done since being back, because it's like, okay, I'm going to go and get all the paints and everything, and then we're going to leave next week. Like it's something that I've actually not done since we've been back in the UK, and I've felt the difference. But I've channeled that creativity into the work that we're doing, definitely into the wellness theory and the direction of our business. And I think it's actually been really, really kind of good that I've had to rechannel that creativity, because it's helped us to, I think, go in a direction that feels more aligned, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think writing as well is another thing.
You definitely like your journaling, your writing.
Yeah.
For me, it's I like the guitar, like practicing guitar, learning more about it. So I was in Dubai, had a guitar teacher for a while, and then after that, just kept on trying to learn through YouTube. But I just love that part of the creativity side. As challenging as it is sometimes, when you finally get when you find that song flows, that tune flows, it's quite a nice feeling, especially when you can do it without thinking as well. It's like it just feels awesome, especially being able to listen to something that sounds great that you're doing.
That's got me really excited, because there's two things I'm going to be taking up in October when I go silent. Well, at least when I'm in Italy, because that's where they are. Is I bought a longbow, which I wanted to train with, and I bought a guitar. And so they're just like sat up in Italy, because I moved here pretty like spontaneously and set life up here. I left those up in Italy, up in the mountains. So that's where I'm going to be holding my retreats, silent retreats up there during next year. And so I'm just going to be guitaring and hounding on the. So you got me really pumped. Because I'm just like, oh, that's something I'd love to feel. It's like to be able to play a song all the way through and just be like, oh, cool, I finally did the thing. But recognizing that it's going to be a hell of a long process. So you're still practicing this now?
Yeah. Like I say, I haven't. I think with the rebrand we're doing at the moment and that, I haven't touched the guitar in a little while. Kind of put that down for a while while doing this, but It's something that I do love doing. Even when I pick it back up again, I really forget what I.
He never forgets. That's really humble. He never forgets. He's ridiculously good. Like he can. If it was me, I would pick it up and be starting from beginning again, right? But he'll pick it up potentially after months. Like you picked it up after years when you first got back into it again. You picked it up after years and was off he goes, and he's just like brilliant.
Oh,
really
cool.
good.
I do enjoy it. The only thing I don't do is sing. I just play the guitar. That's it. No singing involved.
I think he wants to sing
No,
deep down, though.
I think we all want to sing deep down.
No. No
You just got to keep open that wardrobe, Jonathan.
No one needs to hear that. So I'll stick to the guitar.
Oh, lush. Guys, this has been chilled. Like I said, I've decaffeinated Sean now, and so my energy is distinctively different, and I'm really grateful that this was such a chilled conversation and fun. And as always, you guys just legends. I love what you guys are doing. I love the color that you bring to the world with your t-shirts and your own energy and your message and the clarity that you're bringing behind it. So have you got any last little message you'd like to share with the world?
Go ahead,
for me, I said just drawing on my own personal experience is just kind of learn to accept help as well. Like that was for me. I was always that type of person who thought I knew everything and that I didn't need help from anyone. Like I was better than everyone else type of thing. It took me a while to get to the point where I accepted I needed help, and then going out to find help. And I think that's a message to a lot of people, especially men, because I know from previous clients as well, my own experience, men seem to find that a lot harder, have a harder time of looking for help and just acknowledging that they need it. And it's okay to need help. We can't go through life without help. We all need help. We're all connected. So it's okay to know you need help and then to go and look for it. Okay, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you're in a stage of your life where you need a bit of help in determining what direction you need to go on, or maybe just becoming more aligned with who you are, or even finding out who you are. And that's okay.
Charlotte?
I'd say recognizing that when you're well and you're healthy and you're doing all the things we've talked about in this podcast about listening and tuning and accessing that intuition, I think when we can recognize that when we be well, we start to mean well, we start to actually have a lot more meaning behind our own behaviors and about what we're putting out into the world. And then I think that's where we start to make a difference. So I would love for anybody listening to just recognize that when they're healthy and they're well, they can be such a force for good in the world, and then they can go and just share that in like this massive ripple effect in even the smallest ways can have the biggest difference. And I think that's probably the one thing that I wish everybody would know.